Welcome back to the positive side of the balance sheet, Steelers Nation. Business was booming for the Steelers offense today with a 32-13 victory on the road over the Las Vegas Raiders. The defense returned to their base dominant nature, and Justin Fields had the best game of his Steelers career, certainly, if not his NFL career. And it all culminated in a 30-point explosion for the Steelers offense. Boy, who thought that was possible? I'll get back to that defensive performance later. 6 total turnovers. I want to talk about the offense first, and one Najee Harris, my guy right here, number 22, because he didn't have prime Derrick Henry run away from you speed. People neglected the contributions he was able to provide this football team, turning 0-yard runs to 2-yarders, turning 2-yarders into 5-yarders, turning 5-yarders into 10ers, and somewhere in there turning 5-yarders into how is he still on his feet 25 yards later. Najee had been getting very little help this year as far as run blocking goes, and that had been showing up in his stat sheets, and people had been blaming him for that for his dip in production. They had more misdirection when Cordarrelle was in there, and that's why you saw some more success for him. It was good to see Jalen get back on the field today, certainly, but the star of the show was Najee Harris. Eclipsed 100 yards on the ground. What did he end up with here? Let me check real quick. Najee Harris ended the day with 106 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Justin Fields, 59 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 183 yards of rushing the Steelers totaled on the ground today. Those rushing yards were huge for this team. They've telegraphed to us in so many ways that they want to play a ball control offense, keep the ball away from the opponent, pound it down their throats, churn clock, move sticks, really tire out defenses, and keep the ball out of the opponent's playmakers' hands and tire out their defense. That's where your explosive plays come from. And for the people who say that Najee Harris doesn't have that explosive play capability, he had runs of 26 and 36 yards. That 36-yard touchdown that he finished with that dive at the end on one drive today. That was apparently the first rushing touchdown for any Steeler this year not named Fields. And it was about time. And, Najee had one of those diving touchdowns against the Raiders. I think it was 2 years ago. I don't think it was last year. But, they asked him about that in post game. Like, is there some place on the field that if you get here, I can get to the end zone, I can dive from here, similar to Jordan launching from the free throw line? And he seemed to kind of take offense to that question. Like, I know what I'm capable of. I don't care what you guys think I'm capable of. And I didn't think anyone was, impugning what they thought that Najee was capable of. I thought the question was just, Naj, if you get to the 5-yard line, can you make it to the end zone if you leap from the 5-yard line? What about the 7? Najee said, in so many words, Naj knows what Naj can do. And I think the follow-up question should have been to that, what can Naj do then? Can he make it from the 9-yard line? What about from the 10? We've definitely seen him leap from the 5-yard line in the end zone. I'd be curious to see how far out he can make it. And I'm sure that he knows that number. And I'm curious if he really was offended by the question or if he was playing a little bit of possum and, didn't want to let what his range is as far as those aerial attack going over the top there, getting into the end zone. So like I said, they got the rushing game clicking for the first time really all year. And obviously doing it all without James Daniels, and largely a lot of it without Zach Frazier. Still awaiting updates on him. I think everyone else who went down with injury in this game was able to return. Minka, Patrick Queen, Dante Jackson also, and he came back in a big way with an interception and another near interception, a pass breakup, playing a big part in the end of that game for the Steelers defense. I'm starting to really like that trade. It seemed to make us very vulnerable as far as the receiving weapons go. Without a proven route runner that Deontay Johnson was, George Pickens, narrative around him a little bit struggles to get open, and the organization challenged Pickens to overcome those expectations, and I think he's struggled a little bit to move into that X role that Deontay used to fill, from the Z role that Pickens was so deadly at. And speaking of George Pickens, George always fucking open Pickens. He had another drop pass early in this game. He had another one not long after that I'm not going to call a drop because it was a combat catch situation. But it was a catch that we've seen George make Guys who are going to act like that, paint things on their face like that, who are going to show up and not run routes that they're not the primary focus, the primary read for the quarterback on, that they don't expect they have a great chance to get the ball on. They're not going to give as much of an effort on those plays. uh, those guys need to be able to make those catches. Certainly the first one, and you'd like to see him make the second one too. But he redeemed himself a little bit right at the end there, and the way that he was able to keep himself in the game mentally, and when he wasn't contributing much, and not let those frustrations boil over, and stay with it, stay mentally focused, and was able to contribute at the end with that that deep play that he was able to scoop, get his hands under. Says a lot about him, and hopefully a lot about Mike Tomlin's coaching of those guys. I think his ability to reach those guys and say, "Listen, you got a lot of talent going on here, but uh, the cutting room floor of NFL films is littered with guys who had all the talent in the world, never put it together because of, they kept getting in their own way for this reason, that reason. And we want to see you make something out of yourself here, George." So uh, good to see that he's receptive to those talks that I assume are happening with him and his coaching staff. As far as the passing offense as a whole, I'd still like to see Justin Fields take another step as far as that aspect of his game goes. The ability to extend plays and with his legs and move the chains as a rusher is really a new dynamic to this offense that stresses defense in ways that are hard to quantify, but you'd still like to see him do more with his arm, and especially playing in this division where you see all these other quarterbacks putting up these crazy numbers. It would be nice to get a little bit of taste of that action once in a while. I think it's going to help the Justin Fields as a passer now that the rushing offense is starting to gel a little bit, and he can, stand on the shoulders of those giants. The ability to go over the top now and then, but more importantly, consistently in intermediate distances, and especially over the middle, a hot button issue for this team for many years now. But the ability to make defenses pay for blitzing you, force them to keep people in the back end, make them play zone defense, make them be aware of what Fields is doing. There was a lot of negativity surrounding the Steelers defense after their performance last week in Dallas. And, you know, there's a lot of finger pointing. There's always a lot of finger pointing back and forth and buck passing, but it's hard to expect them to be as effective as they can be. Uh, if you're asking them to go out and do it, for 70 plays a game, rather than if you're just asking them to give you 40 stops a game. So how do you limit those opportunities? Well, 6 turnovers. That's going to go a long way. Hard to get anything going offensively when you turn the ball over 6 times. But the reason they were able to be so dominant and successful is because they were off the field for so much of this game. The offense was converting, not necessarily on third downs, but they were the beneficiaries of some penalties that moved the chains. They had that solid running game that they were leaning on, and Calvin Austin, solid outlet on third down, 2 third down conversions. He became the go-to on third down in this game after Pickens. Justin Fields drew a nice little smile from Mike Tomlin after that first 3rd down and 12 conversion to Calvin Austin. Fields did a great job of sliding the pocket there, extending the play. Got a little bit rough for Calvin on that drive. He was the target on a slot fade there, where Calvin Austin ended up getting planted by the defensive back. That pass was just over his fingertips, and then he came up with a load of turf in his face mask because the guy put his face right into the dirt. And on the 3rd down play, he was smacked right in the face by Robert Spillane. Targeted there, 3rd and 28, way behind the sticks. Not a hope of that play going anywhere, but he popped right back up. This kid plays a lot bigger than his actual size is, and didn't phase him. Ended up contributing a big play later. All the credit in the world to that guy, and he should be getting more credit as a punt returner specifically. He's so fast and shifty and elusive, and but a lot of what he does gets called back. A lot of his returns are nullified due to penalties. for a team that had if your offense is gonna be kind of anemic, and it's good to see games like these, but if you're not gonna get a game like this and you need your defense to step up and give you 6 turnovers, for example, or you need your special teams to step up and Miles Calabreau or what's his name, Jeremiah Moon to block a punt for you, you know, in those kind of games, it's good to have a guy like Calvin Austin. It's good to see Austin stepping up into this offense that's devoid of really many passing threats after Pickens and Freiermuth. A lot of people forget Freiermuth when they talk about wide receiver two being missing here in Pittsburgh. Well, Pat's kind of your wide receiver two. Onto the defensive side of the ball, they did a great job of adjusting after being punched in the mouth with that opening drive, that touchdown, marched straight down the field. The Raiders' offense did, and Steelers' defense, specifically rush defense, had no answers. That touchdown were the only points really that the Raiders scored until this game was really out of hand. I bet a lot of Yinzers had strokes when they heard that Terrell Edmonds was replacing Minka Fitzpatrick for the Steelers there in the back end at free safety. We remember him as a strong safety, and now he's playing more center field apparently. Fortunately, that didn't end up being a weakness that the Raiders exploited, because the talk and whining about that would have been so insufferable. Minka was able to return to that game. You may not have noticed because the announcer did not make the broadcast aware of it until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Although I believe he was out there for the beginning of the second half. But for the Minka haters out there, you're now officially no longer allowed to say, well, what does he do except make tackles 15 yards downfield? Well, he's a safety. That's kind of his job, to make tackles 15 yards downfield. If he's missing tackles 15 yards downfield, then that's a conversation we can have. But after that onside kick recovery, his ability to elevate and reel that ball in as other people are trying to knock it out, not necessarily catch it themselves, just throw their weight into the mix to keep him from securely reeling it in. That's an incredibly difficult play to make, and he did it very confidently, very successfully, and you know, game over Steelers victory formation. So just a good reminder of what those hands of Minka's are capable of amidst this drought of takeaways that he's immersed in for the last year and a half or so. Deshaun Elliott was another guy who stepped up big for this defense in this game. He had been getting national praise in recent weeks. Pro Football Focus having him as the #1 rated safety in the NFL in terms of run defense grade. He was ranked number 6 for safeties in tackling grade. And he had a couple big tackles, a couple big sticks to keep the Raiders from extending drives. Early in the fourth quarter, down backed up at their own goal line, he saved a touchdown with one of those tackles. And then on the very next play, TJ punched out that ball, his second forced fumble of the day, and Elliott jumped on it, took it back the other way. This one was over a long time before the clock hit triple zeros. Seemingly all of the momentum was going the Steelers' way uh, from 7-3 on after the Raiders scored their first touchdown. Everything from that point bounced the Steelers' direction. This game was certainly a feather in the cap for Justin Fields. I think, there was talk after the Cowboys game of is it time for Russell Wilson? And going into the Cowboys game, coming off of the Colts game, even though that was a loss for Fields and the Steelers, I thought that Fields had shown enough that I was one signature game from Fields away from making him the official starter, from moving him up on the depth chart and telling Russell Wilson, you're going to be our insurance policy from here on in. But that Dallas game was underwhelming to say the least, and I bumped him back a peg from advantage in. It's back to back to deuce there between Russell Wilson and Fields. With Wilson getting helmet in this game, chips really starting to be pushed in the middle of the table. Fields stepped up in a big way, and I think this big game from him. You still need to see more as a passer, but his ability to move chains, his ability to run an offense. Um, I think he's back in the pole position. I think he's back to advantage in. I think he's and again, one signature game away, but one more stinker, and it's back to Russell Wilson. It's right back into this thing. So we're rooting for Fields. We're rooting for Zach Frazier to be healthy. We're praying for that. We're rooting to get some of these pass rushers back, Herbig and Highsmith. TJ Watt can't do it all on his own. Looking forward to this defense and this offense to play more complementary ball together. That's how you start stacking those points on points on points. Is your run game complementing your pass game, uh, keeping drives alive, keeping their defense on the field, keeping your defense rested. We have the Jets next weekend and Aaron Rodgers. I hope to show him a rude reception. Nothing scarring or permanent, obviously, but hoping that TJ Watt can have one of his signature games against a pretty immobile quarterback. Those are guys that Watt usually feasts against. So that'll be exciting to watch for. But I got to get off the mic because I was talking about the Raiders, not the Jets. What am I doing? Have a good week, folks.